Greetings, traveler.
Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a closer look at the reveals for Quilboar and Beast. The removed cards for Quilboar, no more Bramble Witch. Wow, that is pretty shocking because that would also assume that they're going to remove Cultists, because Cultists is the demon resummoner that usually is kept in check by the fact that Bramble is in the game. Without a Bramble, it is an extremely powerful strategy. Hot Air Surveyor out. That makes sense. It was really strong. No more Agam, no more Jazzer, no more Piper. So we're likely going to see other ways to buff our gems. Bach wasn't really being played around too much. Tough Tusk isn't that good outside of Bach and, some Trinket stuff, but Trinkets are out. And then we have Snarling Conductor out, which was also just a really, really good 4-drop. So very impactful removals for Quilboar for sure. New spell called Gem Day. I love it. Choose one. Your blood gems give an extra +1 attack or +1 health. That just seems like a really fun, cool, flexible spell. Very nice. Boar Gamer. And it's a board gamer. That's great. Love it. At the end of your turn, get a random choose one card. So we've already seen there's choose one here. So there does appear to be quite a bit of choose one synergy. Now it is a Quilboar and it is a taunt. So there is some redeeming quality to this other than its effect. So that is quite nice. I always like it whenever you can keep these value generating cards on your board. It's a lot easier to buff stuff that has a type, and the fact that it has taunt also makes it useful. Choose one, get 2 blood gems, or get a random 1-cost Tavern spell for a Crater Miner. So it's a 2/2, you buy that say on turn 3, and then you can get 2 blood gems straight away, make it a 4/4, or get a random 1-cost spell. Early game I'll probably always go for the spell, because that can give me a lasso, or it can give me a new recruit, or a coin, which is value, and early game it's all about that value. So it does seem like a fun unit to buy with an option to high roll. And even if you get something like the new card that gives either +4 attack or +4 health, that's still a 2/6 if you give it extra health, and you're probably going to be able to put the 4 attack or 4 health somewhere else and have it do more work. So seems like a good minion early. Crystal Infuser, awesome art, by the way. Wow, that is insane. Get 3 blood gems or gain death rattle, get 2 blood gems. That does seem like if you hit it early, you always go for the death rattle option, and then the choose one is nice, where if you hit that later in the game, you could still get it for 3 blood gems. I actually really, really love that. That just makes Quilboar so much more flexible, where if you generate this randomly later in the game, just imagine the amount of times where you've been playing Quilboar and you get something like a Piper in the late game and you can't really play it. It's sort of just a waste. Whereas with this thing, you can choose to get 3 blood gems, and all of a sudden this is a really nice card to get if you're spamming blood gems. So super flexible, super good. Seems like a fantastic thing to triple into early. Gem Rat to give the Gem Day, right? Yes. Yeah, it's the same art, just a close-up. At the end of your turn, get a Gem Day. Yeah, seems like a lot of end of turn, this expansion. Seems like a lot of choose one synergy for Quilboar. Seems good, right? At the end of the turn, you get to upgrade your gems. It's a 3/3. It's not crazy, but again, right, if you get that early, that's still really impactful. Allows you to upgrade your gems, and then you have something like the Crystal Infuser giving you gems so you don't take damage because your gems are getting bigger. That's nice. Salty Hog. After you add 3 cards to your hand, give your other minions +1/+1. Oh, wow. Okay. I might be overrating this a little bit, but I don't think so. This seems really, really good. Because it's a pirate Quilboar, so it fits both comps and could even just fit anything, because it says give your other minions +1/+1. It doesn't say give your other Quilboar, give your other pirates, or give your other even minions or odd minions or so. It's just minions. And whenever we have that, that is really powerful. It allows you to just build whatever you want, and it's a guaranteed way to scale it. Adding cards to your hand, again, that is super easy if you add a bunch of gems to your hand, if you add a bunch of coins to your hand, if you're adding a bunch of tavern spells to your hand. So anytime you have a brand and you have a little bit of value generation, cards find a way into your hand. So especially if you have 2 of these on the board, so they're also buffing each other a little bit, that seems really nice. So it seems like basically a really good replacement for Tour Group. Tour Group right now is what this card wants to be, but it's hard to do it because Tour Group only buffs your 6-drops if you play other 6-drops. Whereas with this thing, you can play 6-drops all you want and it buffs it all the same. You just need to add cards to your hand. So seems cool. Seems like a really fun card for APM and then to buff your board like this. Thorn Trailblazer is a 4-drop. It's a card that makes your choose one hit both effects, and you have 1 per turn. And then if it's golden, you get 2. And then I'm assuming if you have 2, you also get 2. Okay, well, yeah, we've seen a lot of choose one synergy. So that makes sense to have something like this on the board. It's a bit hard to call this so early because it's a whole new way of playing. It's like, is this going to be really good? Is it going to be a little mediocre? But intuitively, it feels nice, yeah. Because we're going to be able to play gem days, which then gives us +1 attack and +1 health. So it's all about, can you keep this on the board without taking damage? Because these are all greedy cards, right? This buffs your choose one. Then we have the Gem Rat, which gives you a Gem Day. Those are greedier cards that aren't great in the combat. But if you get them early enough and they synergize with each other and you have Gem Generation, you might be able to keep these on the board and not take damage. And then obviously it's fantastic. Then you're just getting huge gems, which we all know when you're playing Quilboar, that's a really good thing to have. For the Turbo Hog Rider, look at that. After you play a choose one card, play a blood gem on all your other Quilboar. A little bit Agam vibes, but not really, right? Agam was insane where you could just easily generate a crap ton of gems. You could buff these gems. It's going to be a lot harder to generate a ton of choose one cards. Not as hard as before because we've seen a lot of choose one synergy, but still, this is all going to depend on how reliable can you generate quite a few choose one cards per turn. If it is easy, then this is amazing. If it's hard to do, then this is going to be a little niche. That's what it's all going to depend on. And that's going to be we're going to be able to figure that out pretty easily. I'd say in like 1 or 2 days of playing, we're going to get a good feel for, okay, how easily can I get into a position where I'm spamming choose one cards? Fearless Foodie is now a 3-drop, but it only gives 3 blood gems. But still, Foodie is still in the game, so you're still getting that +1/+1. We have Gem Day, which is then provided by the Gem Rat. Seems like there's lots of choose one options, and there's lots of ways to buff your gems, which obviously then makes the Turbo Hog Rider a lot better. Sunbacon is now a 2/3. Oh, look at that. I love that. Sunbacon honestly fell off a lot due to spells, which is a weird way to think about that. But this is what happens. Before, you would need to sell your starter units to buy 2 more units on turn 3. So you buy a Sunbacon, then you level, and then you have 5 gold, and then you sell the Sunbacon, you buy 2 units. That was good. We did that a lot. Now that spells are in the game, a lot of the time what happens is you get something like a Chef's Choice, or you get a Lasso, or you buy something like a Careful Investment, and all of a sudden, you don't really want to sell your starter unit anymore. So Bacon really suffered for that, and I mean, I basically never bought Sunbacon anymore. Now that it's a 2/3 and you're not really getting punished for keeping it on your board as much, that is relevant. So that definitely helps you buy Sunbacons early. So I like that. It's a good change. Ooh, Buffoon is a 2-drop. Man, that is good. Not much else to say. That is good. Whenever this takes damage, get a blood gem. This is one of the best early triples when you're playing in the current meta, because it's a thing that will buff itself. It started out as a 3/4, now it's a 1/3, but especially if you have, let's say, a Sunbake and then you turn that into a 3/5 straight away, there is a real chance that a 3/5 takes damage 3 times in a fight. That's a real possibility because you're fighting other 1-drops and 2-drops and people have 1/1 tokens and all that. Really easy to start generating lots of gems, and we talked about that as well. When we have all the choose one synergy and the gem buffing, it is important that you have gem generation. Looks like a really strong start for Quilboar. Obviously, we have to take a look at everything that is being revealed. We have to feel the meta, but without any of the extra information, it feels like Quilboar look really strong, because it seems like it's going to be very easy to generate gems and it's going to be very easy to buff your gems, and that's a good time for Quilboar. Quilboar love that. Bannerboar back on 3, yet another way to generate blood gems, although it's not really put them in your hand. It's still a way to get rewarded for playing lots of gem buffs. Again, right, we're just seeing lots and lots of buffs coming the Quilboar way. We are at Beasts. Seems like the whole self-damage thing is out. I think that's fair. I think that was a good experiment, but it didn't really feel great. Self-damage Beast was hard to balance. Back when it was broken, it was a little bit too good, and then it was annoying, and then they nerfed it, and then it was kind of unplayable. So it seemed like it was difficult to find a Goldilocks zone for self-damage Beast. So we're going to have a new mechanic, and that's Beetles. Death Rattle, your Beetles have +1/+2 this game, and summon a 2/2 Beetle. So basically it summons a 3/4 Beetle. That seems interesting. Now, it's hard to evaluate this card without looking at everything else, so we are going to look at everything else. But I can already tell you that, from what I've seen, buffing Beetles is super relevant. And we've seen that in the past where these things can stack up quite quickly. Now we're summoning a 3/4 Beetle, right? And that is, you know, we've seen no Macaw being removed. We talked about that in other reveal videos. So we are going to be able to amplify those Death Rattles. Titus is very likely going to be still in, right? So then we have Macaw, Titus on this thing. There can be a lot of procs on this. in one fight. You can have multiple of these, you can have these reborns, and especially when we're talking about having a Titus on the board, it's all just times 2, times 2, times 2. So lots and lots of additional buffs to those beetles. Then we have a 1-drop to summon a beetle. That's just like a nice thing to pick up. A 1/1 that summons a 2/2. That's like a 3/3, but it has the benefit of not getting wrecked by Divine Shield and all that. Just seems like a nice starter unit. Sort of like an ethical Mana Saber. Mana Saber just designed to deal more face damage if you fight a 4/4 or 3/3. This thing seems a lot more fair. Then we have Forest Rover. Battlecry or beetles have +2/+1 this game, and then Death Rattle summon a 2/2 beetle. This really seems like something you pick up in the early game, but it's hard to do Battlecry's synergy with beasts generally. It's hard to fit a brand on your board. So I don't think you'll be spamming this later in the game because it's probably not worth 2 gold if you're, you buy it for 3, you sell it for 1, so 2 gold invested for a +2/+1. But it's more something, you start off with a Vermin, and then you roll into Forest Rover on tier 3. That's like okay, right? Now you're doing well. So I think this is a good card to buy early, but I wouldn't really look for this later in the game to buff my beetles. Then Nest Swarmer seems to be the payoff card, where once you have done the buffing on the beetles, you have this thing, Death Rattle summon 3 2/2 beetles. If you're running Titus, then this is pretty much never reborning, but if you aren't running Titus, you could reborn this, similar to how we have Mount right now, and that is pretty rebornable, right, if you position it properly with taunts and all that. So I can see this being reborn, summon, I don't know, man, like 3 20/20s, and then you get 3 more. Seems good if you're able to get the beetle engine up and running. And here it is. This is the way how we're going to buff our beetles. Avenge 4, your beetles have +2/+2 this game. This is good that it starts off at Avenge 4 and not Avenge 3. It's probably insane at Avenge 3, but Avenge 4 is still doable when you're running Beast, right? Because you have lots of reborns, you get stuff like, we have Mana Saber in or not? Yeah, Mana Saber's still in, so you can use that to fuel this. But I do think that the main scaling comes from this guy because this is a Death Rattle. And for beasts running Titus and Macaw, it's much easier to just pump a bunch of Death Rattle than it is to pump a bunch of units. But this is still good to have on your board because the Death Rattle itself also summons a beetle. So you can have that in the back, buff a lot of beetles, and then it summons another one. So overall seems like a fun new way to play beast, just beetle buffing. Then New Zao is back. That's the Beast Cleave. We used to have Cave Hydra, but then that was just, that was a bit weird. There was an issue. I can't remember exactly why Cave Hydra couldn't be in the game, but it was a bit too good. And then they made the Pirate Cleave. And now we're back to New Zao. Whenever this attacks, deal damage equal to its attack to another random enemy minion. New Zao was pretty silly. If you were ever in a position where you had infinite money and you had a golden brand and you were just doing lots of buffs, New Zao was a really good target to buff. Because especially if you can make it golden, then it's going to attack and then just like slam 2 other minions on the enemy board would take damage. So it's one of those wild card minions that can snipe a Titus or snipe a reborn minion in the back to completely ruin Death Rattle ordering. Seems like a fun card to have back. It's good to be able to deal with Exodia comps. Hungry Snapjaw. That was always such a good 2-drop to get early. This is the reason you bought Mana Saber on turn 1, and then you rolled Snapjaw on turn 3, and it's like, oh yeah, let's go. It's not great in the late game or anything. You usually just have like a 80 health turtle on your board being weird with, only having 5 damage or 10 damage or whatnot. But it's a really good starter that saves you lots of health. So yeah, this is a strong early game beast card. And then Boon of Beetles was changed to summoning 2 beetles, which makes sense. Now that we have a lot of beetle synergy, it's good to get that buffed again. I will say that Boon of Beetles was so broken when it summoned multiple beetles because it was so good at blocking Divine Shield, blocking Leroy. So I don't love that we're going back to that because even though it's supposed to be a beetle card and it's important for that, it might just be a Divine Shield breaker in the end game or a Leroy sponge in the late game or, Bramble Witch is out. Yeah, that's how it was used a lot of the time. So a little bit scared for that. All right, guys. That was the Quilboar and Beast reveal. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you back for the next one.